Europe is entering the second nuclear age. For 30 years after the Cold War, Europeans tried to believe that nuclear weapons belonged to history, something from another era, something from the Cold War, from the time of the Berlin Wall, from the time when the world lived under the shadow of atomic destruction. But that illusion is fading very quickly. A few days ago, French President Emmanuel Macron made a remarkable announcement. Speaking from the nuclear submarine base at Île Longue in Brittany, he said France will strengthen its nuclear arsenal. France will increase the number of warheads. And France will stop revealing how many nuclear weapons it actually has. But that was not the most important part. Macron also said something that could reshape European security. France is ready to extend its nuclear deterrence deeper into Europe. In simple terms, France is offering something that Europe has never seriously discussed before: a European nuclear shield. And suddenly, countries across Europe are listening. Germany is talking to France about nuclear cooperation. Poland has shown interest. Sweden, the Netherlands, Belgium, Denmark, and Greece are already part of strategic discussions. This is a huge change. For decades, Europe relied almost entirely on the United States for nuclear protection. The American nuclear umbrella was the ultimate guarantee behind NATO, but the world is changing. Russia invaded Ukraine and reminded Europe that large wars can still happen on this continent. Vladimir Putin has repeatedly hinted at Russia's nuclear arsenal. China is building nuclear weapons at incredible speed, trying to reach parity with the United States and Russia. North Korea continues to develop missiles that can reach across continents. And Iran's nuclear ambitions remain one of the most explosive questions in global politics. In this new world, nuclear weapons are no longer a relic of the past. They are becoming central again. That is why Macron said something very striking. He said the next half-century will likely be an age of nuclear weapons. Now here is the uncomfortable logic behind all of this. Countries that possess nuclear weapons are extremely difficult to attack. Not impossible, but extraordinarily difficult. Because nuclear weapons create the ultimate deterrence. Take North Korea. It is one of the poorest countries in the world, diplomatically isolated and economically weak. Yet no country seriously considers invading it. Why? Because North Korea has nuclear weapons. The same logic applies to Pakistan, to Israel, and to other nuclear states. Once a country possesses credible nuclear capabilities, attacking it becomes a gamble that could end in catastrophic destruction. This is why many analysts believe Iran pursued nuclear capability in the first place. Not necessarily to use the bomb, but to create something far more powerful: strategic immunity. The moment a country can retaliate with nuclear force, any adversary must think twice. And this is exactly the strategic logic France understood decades ago. In the 1960s, President Charles de Gaulle decided that France needed its own independent nuclear arsenal. He did not fully trust that the United States would risk its own cities to defend Europe. So France built its own nuclear force, the famous force de frappe. Today, France has around 300 nuclear warheads deployed on submarines and aircraft. The final decision to use them belongs only to the French president. For decades, this deterrent existed primarily to protect France. Now Macron is suggesting something new. What if that deterrent also helped protect Europe? This idea comes at a moment when many European leaders are quietly questioning old assumptions. For 70 years, Europe depended on American power. But the return of Donald Trump to the White House has introduced a new level of uncertainty into transatlantic relations. Trump has repeatedly questioned NATO commitments and pressured European allies. European leaders still support NATO. But behind the scenes, they are asking a difficult question. What happens if the American guarantee becomes less reliable? The answer may be emerging in Paris. France is the only nuclear power inside the European Union. Britain still has nuclear weapons as well, but it is now outside the EU after Brexit. So France is uniquely positioned to play this role. Macron's proposal does not mean Europe is suddenly building a shared nuclear arsenal. The French president would still control France's weapons. But cooperation could include joint deterrence exercises, deeper strategic planning, and perhaps even the temporary deployment of nuclear-capable aircraft in allied countries. The goal is not to replace NATO, at least not yet. The goal is to make sure Europe is not helpless if global politics become more unstable. There is also another reason this debate is happening now. If Europe does not create some form of shared nuclear protection, individual countries might begin to consider building their own bombs. Poland has already hinted that it may eventually need nuclear weapons of its own, and once nuclear proliferation begins, it can spread quickly. One country builds a bomb, then another feels it must follow. Macron may be trying to prevent that scenario by offering something else. A European deterrent built around France's existing nuclear force. Whether this idea succeeds or not remains uncertain. There are major political and strategic questions to solve. NATO remains the cornerstone of European defence, and many countries are still uncomfortable discussing nuclear strategy openly. But one thing is becoming clear. The world that Europe hoped to live in after the Cold War no longer exists. War has returned to the continent. Strategic competition is intensifying across the globe, and nuclear weapons are once again shaping the balance of power. Europe may not have chosen to re-enter the nuclear age, but history seems to be pulling it back into it. And this time, the debate may not be about whether Europe needs nuclear deterrence. The debate may be about who controls it. If you want deeper analysis on global politics, European strategy, and the changing balance of power in the Western world, visit westernrelations.com. And if you enjoy this kind of discussion, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and join us again for more conversations about the forces shaping our world. Thank you very much for watching.